and I was going to use it this week, but my van, that's my other project, my 94 Astro van, the brakes, master cylinder, I think, went out on it. Pedal's going to the floor, so I need to do something with that before I use it to tow anything. I can use it around the farm here. Need to set this idle up a little bit. I'd set it down. One thing good about working on your own carburetor, you can touch it up without taking it back to the shop all the time. And I'm sure Tom would like the business, but he has plenty of other boats to work on, and does. He keeps very busy, especially on major holiday weekends. But I'm real happy how this MerCruiser came out. I followed the instructions from Mike's Carburetor, because he's got a lot of good interactive stuff on his website. A lot of good stuff on Mike's Carburetor, carburetors.com. And he told me to put a brass float in here, so I did that. That video is already on YouTube. I put that up probably about a year ago, so you can look for that video. You can look for my other videos on YouTube, and I'm not real serious about what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to put some videos up, and maybe somebody can capture some of the ideas that I've used on this project boat, like getting rid of the wood. I don't think I have any wood left in this boat, because in 1997 I replaced the sole plate and stringers, the deck, and with this 1-inch Divinicel H80, and it's wonderful stuff. When I replaced the fuel tank, I had Sunshine Marine and Medley make a new one for me, fabricated, and they, I think, did an outstanding job. I wished I had done this in stainless steel, though, instead of aluminum, but I was hanging on to my wallet a little bit too tight when I had them fabricated for me. A lot of work to get a fuel tank in and out. Watch the other videos on fuel tank replacement, and you'll see what but I put in new 2-part foam, and if I had to do that again, I'd do it differently. I would flow it in and let it rise, and then I would sculpt it at the where the deck goes. I'd sculpt it using like a hot wire, like a piece of Monel wire, and hook it up to a car battery and use that to cut the foam, sculpt it with a hot wire. I've never done it before, but I've seen it done. And the reason for that is the 2-part foam can actually be structural if it's put in there right. It can actually hold the floor up if it's the heavy density, because there are two densities you can get in the 2-part foam, and I went with the heavier density this time. But I didn't flow it in. I drilled all kinds of holes and I poured it in, which is the way most people do it, and that's fine. It worked fine. But anyway, I can't wait to get this on the water and actually see how it performs when the boat's rocking. But I've done a lot of work on the electrical system. I basically tore out all the wiring from factory and replaced everything with marine grade wiring, and most of it from Anchor Marine or Pacer Group marine grade wiring. And the Anchor Marine I buy online from Walmart online, and it comes in all the primary colors and gauges, and I went heavier on most of the gauges. And the speakers I put in here are kicker speakers, and let's see if the horn works. Yeah, the horn works. And I should have run the blower before I started the engine. And then I got 2 bilges, bilge 1 and bilge 2. 2 independent systems. So, sounds pretty good to me. I've had this engine apart and together more times than I can tell you. A lot of times the head gaskets fail. It's an open deck engine, and you have to be real particular with the torque, or you'll ruin your engine. You'll ruin the lower end. You can actually flex the block if you don't do the torques right when you replace a head or head gasket. And most people don't read the service bulletins. They don't understand why they've destroyed their engine because they didn't put it back together correctly. They think it looks fine, it runs fine, but then you burn out the bearings. The bearings are burned. And you say, why did I burn rod bearings? Why did I burn crankshaft bearings? Because you flexed it. And you flex it and you say, what do you mean you flexed? Well, it's a steel head. It's really hard. It's a Ford head. And I'd be interested to see if you could put a racing head, aluminum head on here and see how that works out. That would be interesting. See somebody do that. And on one of my Facebook groups, somebody's talking about doing that, so I'll wait to hear back from them. Hopefully they shoot some video and do some photographs for the group so they can share what they did with us. So, and I have other videos where I show how to time this engine using a timing light, or check for a problem with the points or condenser or the distributor. And most of the time they burn out the ignition wire. They leave the key on, and then they don't have 12 volts where it's red there on the... Got to be 12 volts on the ignition coil on that positive side, and the negative side is for the points and the tack. And sometimes they have a problem with the tack will short out, and that'll kill your ignition too. And you don't know what it is until you disconnect the tack. But most of these gauges, the analog can, you know, the tachometer can't be checked, but the analog ones, the voltmeter, well, voltmeter isn't hard to check, but the fuel, the temp, the oil, and trim, you can do those with resistors. And that trim is like 0 ohms when it's full down. It's like 10 ohms when it's full up, so it's kind of persnickety. And these gauges are like 240 ohms all the way minimum to the left, and like 30 ohms full clockwise to the right, or maximum reading. And I've even changed the lighting on this. I've changed the lighting for these gauges so that they're backlit. I don't like the factory backlights, so I put in sockets, and I rewired. I had to drill everything, and so it would accept sockets. Done a lot of work on this boat, and I love it because it's got this nice byrider area in the front, nice seating, and it's got great seating in the back. And you can lift this up and make it a sun deck. Very functional. But everybody says, "Well, would you get an outboard?" Like, well, yeah, could. I don't know if you've priced an outboard lately. Very expensive engines.